Chapter 360. Sword Emperor, Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, Setting Sun Saber Emperor Ling Han was patient. At present, Zi Xuexian was wearing the Thunder Battle Armor, and it was in perfect condition. There were flashes of incandescent white lightning flickering on it, making her look like a valiant goddess of war. Ling Han discovered, to his surprise, that Zi Xuexian's ears were extraordinarily long, standing tall like a rabbit's, and her eyes were glowing with a white light, like two balls of lightning. Though he had not seen Zi Xuexian many times, he remembered clearly that Zi Xuexian's appearance should be no different from a normal person's, unlike now. Her ears were long and pointed, and her eyes were like lightning. Strange, why was he so certain that this girl was Zi Xuexian with one look? The first should be her hair. Ling Han had only seen one human with purple hair. The second was her appearance. Even though her eyes were like lightning now, her appearance was still that of Zi Xuexian. The third was the Thunder Battle Armor. This was her trademark. Ling Han had to admit that though this appearance was a little strange, it also had its own kind of beauty. At least, it was not something that Lu Yutong or Li Xichan could compare to. They are about to catch up, Zi Xuexian suddenly said. This was naturally not said to Ling Han, but because she had activated the memory crystal, and was currently recording. I can sense their presence. Indeed, 3 figures appeared in the distance, and their speed was extremely fast. They seemed to be walking calmly step by step, but each step was 100 miles, as if they could shrink the ground into inches. Zi Xuexian's speed was not slow, but the speed of these 3 people was even faster. In a short while, the distance between the 2 sides had been shortened to within half a mile. Zi Xuexian, you are a genius of our race, why must you betray us and help outsiders? What does the extermination of the human race have to do with you? An old man in the middle of the 3 pursuers said. He had a head of white hair, and his eyes similarly glowed with white light, like balls of lightning. The difference was that there was a purple pattern on his forehead. It seemed piercing, but also seemed to be naturally formed. Not only him, the other 2 old men also had such a pattern, and it was also on their foreheads. The moment he opened his mouth, Ling Han was given a fright. Extermination of the human race? If others said such harsh words, Ling Han would only treat it as bullshit and bragging. However, the aura of any one of these 3 old men was not any weaker than Zi Xuexian's, so they were all at least in the Shattering Void tier. If 3 Shattering Void tier elites joined forces, then they would really be able to exterminate all living things in the vast lands. I have lived here for more than 300 years, and have long since become one with this world. How could I possibly watch helplessly as you all do such a deranged thing? Zi Xuexian said coldly, but her feet were moving very quickly. Obviously, she didn't want to start a war of words, but used the memory crystal to record it. You are a member of my Violet Lightning race. As long as you are, you will forever be. The elder on the left said with a cold expression. Let's talk this out. No matter what, Xuexian is an outstanding genius of our race in the lower realm. Even if she returned to the ancestral land, she would still be extraordinary. Xuexian, this old man knows that you're just muddle-headed for a moment. Hurry up and wake up. The elder on the right had a gentle smile on his face. It just so happened that one played the good cop and the other played the bad cop. Lower realm. Ling Han's heart clenched. These 3 old men were not as simple as Shattering Void tier elites, but had even come from the realm of immortals. Then it was extremely possible that these 3 people's abilities were even above the Shattering Void tier, immortals. Zi Xuexian was in the Shattering Void tier, but there was no purple pattern on her forehead. Perhaps that was a symbol that only immortals could possess. Additionally, their auras were stronger than Zi Xuexian's, and their speed was faster. Adding all these together, Ling Han guessed that these 3 people were immortals. However, immortals didn't seem to be that powerful. Putting aside the fact that the Azura Demon Emperor had been split into 9 parts and suppressed for several tens of thousands of years, these 3 old men should be in their peak condition, so why had they still not taken down Zi Shuexian after so long? Don't waste your breath. As long as I, Zi Shuexian, am alive, I will stop you all, Zi Shuexian said resolutely. Then don't blame me for being merciless. The old man in the middle had a stern look in his eyes. His right hand clenched into a fist, and with a Z, a white-colored lightning spear actually formed. Each and every one of the patterns on the spear shone brightly, exuding a terrifying aura. Even if Ling Han was only a bystander, he still felt as if he was experiencing it himself. If his actual body appeared here, merely this aura would be enough to shock him to death, even if he was still in the heaven tier in his last life. In front of true power, he was too weak. With a wave of the old man's hand, this lightning spear shot towards Zi Shuexian. Zi Shuexian gave a delicate shout, and a ball of lightning surged out from her body, fiercely shooting her out. Not only did it increase in speed, it also changed its trajectory. Just when Ling Han thought that she would be able to dodge this attack, he saw that lightning spear actually change its direction, and continue to shoot towards Zi Shuexian. On the other hand, Zi Shuexian's previous burst of speed was definitely an overload for her, causing her pretty face to instantly turn pale, and a sliver of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. She definitely could not do it again. The lightning spear caught up to her, and she could only turn around to parry it. She opened up a screen of lightning, and with a ZZ sound, the will of martial art turned into a field of lightning talismans. Even Ling Han broke out in a cold sweat. This would have been enough to kill him 100 times in his last life. The lightning spear arrived, but was blocked by the screen of lightning. But with this pause, the 3 old men also closed in, and the 4 of them instantly engaged in a fierce battle. These 3 old men were indeed stronger, as if they had endless power, but it gave Ling Han a feeling that they seemed to be deliberately holding back, and had not used their full battle prowess. Thus, even if the 3 of them joined forces, they were still unable to capture Zi Shuexian. Despicable power of regulations, suppressing our abilities. The 3 old men seemed to be a little displeased, and could not help but complain. Suppression by the power of regulations? Ling Han's mind spun quickly. With the level of ability he had in his last life, he was qualified to come into contact with some secrets, not to mention that he had explored various historical sites and obtained a large amount of information towards the end of his life. There were some conjectures made by predecessors, and they were only conjectures before, but combined with the scene before his eyes, Ling Han could confirm with a nod that they were correct. According to legend, the divine realm had its own rules, and the mortal realm had its own rules, each minding their own business. Why could shattering void tier cultivators break through the void and enter the divine realm? It was not because shattering void tier cultivators were strong enough to break through the heaven and earth, but because the strength of shattering void tier cultivators surpassed the limit that the mortal realm could bear, so they would be repelled to the divine realm, which had higher rules. In the divine realm, the heaven and earth were sturdier, and could withstand the torment of immortals. In other words, entering the divine realm from the mortal realm was a relatively easy process, because the mortal realm would automatically repel, which was equivalent to assistance. The prerequisite was that one's ability had to reach the shattering void tier, and possibly the moment when one broke through to the immortal realm. But to enter the mortal realm from the divine realm, that was difficult. Firstly, the divine realm was extremely sturdy, and it was very difficult to break through the void, and secondly, the mortal realm repelled immortals, so it was naturally difficult to sail against the current. Moreover, even if one came to the mortal realm, immortals would probably not be able to easily use the power of immortals. On the contrary, they would have to suppress their battle prowess, or else they would definitely be repelled by the mortal realm, and return directly to the divine realm. Ling Han immediately deduced that these 3 old men were indeed immortals, but their power had been suppressed. Thus, even though their abilities were clearly far superior to Zi Shuexian's, the current situation had been formed. Chapter 361. Zi Shuexian and the three old men battled fiercely. Ling Han was very shocked. Zi Shuexian was indeed a peerless genius. Though she was fighting three alone, she actually had the upper hand. This would really make one hold their head and exclaim in shock. A shattering void tier cultivator facing three immortals could actually have the upper hand, but that was the truth. Who asked this to be the vast lands, where the cultivation of immortals was suppressed? In a battle of the same tier, the ability of a peerless genius to fight surpassing cultivation levels could be displayed to the fullest. However, immortals were immortals, after all. Their power was suppressed, but their power was endless. As long as the battle dragged on long enough, then Zi Shuexian's power would definitely be exhausted, and she would be captured by them. The three old men did indeed do so. They were only continuously exhausting Zi Shuexian's power, neither too fast nor too slow. Zi Shuexian shouted repeatedly. Chi, chi, chi. The thunder battle armor on her body emitted blazing white lightning, turning into multiple lightning dragons that pounced towards the three old men to bite. This was obviously a powerful move, and instantly forced the three old men into a fluster. They expended a great deal of effort to exterminate these lightning dragons, and Zi Shuexian took the opportunity to escape from the battle. However, not long after, she was caught up again, and another fierce battle ensued. Ling Han bared his teeth. So the thunder battle armor was actually a level 10 spirit tool, or else how could it cause trouble for the three immortals? Their power was suppressed, but that was still the battle prowess of the shattering void tier. Heaven tier cultivators would be destroyed in a few punches and kicks. Back then, Zi Shuexian could only rank 4th among the 7 heaven tier elites. Was this because she was deliberately hiding her strength, or did the Sword Emperor and the others similarly have a level 10 spirit tool that could suppress the thunder battle armor? Ling Han sighed. Back then, he was completely focused on alchemy, and did not care about the ranking of martial art at all. He only thought that if he could reach the shattering void tier, he would be able to push open the doors to the realm of immortals, and suppress the bandit, heavenly phoenix divine maiden. He was completely unaware of how wide the gap between him and these 6 people was. Now, he was very clear that he possessed battle prowess surpassing a dozen stars, and the installation of power from the Black Tower could raise his power by a whole major tier. This kind of battle prowess was practically nature-defying. Thus, in his previous life, he didn't have any trump cards in the field of martial art, but he was still able to be ranked 7th in the world and sit side by side with Sword Emperor and the others. Thinking about it now, he felt a little embarrassed. Fuck, a hero doesn't boast about his past achievements. If I meet the Sword Emperor and the others again, I'll definitely give them a good thrashing. Who asked me to spend all my energy on alchemy in my last life? In terms of my achievements in alchemy, even the Sword Emperor, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, and Na Lan too have to obediently call me Grandmaster and beg me to concoct alchemical pills for them. Ling Han gave himself a thumbs up in his mind, and continued on his way. In reality, although the battle was fierce, it was just a repetition. Zi Shuexian could always rely on the thunder battle armor to turn things around in dire straits. With one strike, the 3 old men would be flustered, and she would take the opportunity to charge out, causing Ling Han to feel a little bored. However, the things recorded in the memory crystal could only be played according to the fixed process. It could not be fast-forwarded, paused, slow-forwarded, or rewound. Therefore, Ling Han could only wait quietly. But after fighting for a long while, not only did Ling Han get tired of it, the 3 old men also had enough. With the protection of the thunder battle armor, if we continue to fight like this, we will not be able to take her down at all, the old man on the left said. Indeed. The old man on the right nodded. The old man in the middle thought for a moment, and said, then I will use a sliver of divine power to break the thunder battle armor. Then the regulations of this realm will immediately react and expel you, and may even severely injure you, the old man on the left said with a frown. We can't worry about that. If we let her leak the secret, the people of this realm will be prepared, and it may ruin the clan's 10,000-year plan. Moreover, if the matter is ruined on our side, the other clans will definitely make trouble for us, the old man in the middle said. Fine, then you be careful. The old man on the left nodded. No matter, I will control my power. As long as the thunder battle armor is broken, the backlash from the power of the realm will not be too serious. The expression of the old man in the middle was cold. Flashes of white lightning floated out of his blazing white eyes, and his aura instantly rose madly. In that instant, his power completely surpassed the shattering void tier. Immortal level. This was the power of immortals. Ling Han sensed it. In comparison, the power of the heaven tier in his last life was like a drop of water compared to the ocean. It was not qualified to be mentioned in the same breath at all. Moreover, this kind of power far surpassed the Azura demon emperor of that time. The other two old men shot away at the same time, as if they would be implicated if they stood there. Their reaction was correct. A crack in the void soundlessly appeared behind the old man in the middle, and immediately turned into a giant mouth. It suddenly opened and closed, and swallowed the old man in the middle. Was this the repulsion of the realm, directly sending him out of the vast lands? Ling Han was delighted. The old man's attack had not even been launched when he was repelled by the realm's power. Zi Shuexian had one less powerful enemy, and there should be a sliver of a chance of victory, but he had not even finished his thought. Xiao, the instant that crack closed, a blazing white spear of lightning shot out. This was different from the previous attack. The power of this spear of lightning was at least 100 times stronger, and what was more frightening was that there were multiple patterns entwined on the spear of lightning, and the pressure it emitted would make even shattering void tier elites tremble in fear. This was the most frightening attack of immortals. It was not power, but rather the will of martial art, a complete suppression of the will of martial art. Ling Han's expression changed. That old man still managed to launch an attack at the last moment before he was repelled by the realm's power. This was too frightening. Pooh! There was absolutely no chance for Zi Shuexian to dodge or parry. This spear directly pierced through her delicate body. So what if it was the thunder battle armor? A hole was directly pierced through. Ling Han understood. So this was how the hole on the thunder battle armor came about. Ah! Zi Shuexian screamed. She had been struck in the heart. This spear of lightning had directly pierced through her chest, and her heart had definitely exploded. Even if she was in the shattering void tier, she should not be able to survive. Ling Han's heart involuntarily tightened. Could it be that Zi Shuexian was about to perish? Xiao, but Zi Shuexian instead sprinted madly as she took off the thunder battle armor, and said, Boundless Mountain, Clear Harmony Palace Hall, there are all the answers. People of the future, the things you have been told previously were all lies. The real answer is there, and you must obtain it. Otherwise, the disaster will repeat itself. With a flick of her hand, the thunder battle armor instantly pierced through the air, and her figure became smaller and smaller below, and very quickly disappeared. Obviously, the memory crystal was on the thunder battle armor. The thunder battle armor traversed an immeasurable distance, and finally landed on the ground. Every pattern had lost its luster, as if it had become the most ordinary battle armor. This state of stillness persisted for about a few days, and then the scene suddenly stopped. It should be that the memory crystal's capacity was limited, and it was full. Ling Han's divine sense automatically left the memory crystal, and appeared inside the Black Tower. As the ruler of this place, he could clearly determine that not even a breath's time had passed. The things that happened in his divine sense did not have the temporal nature of reality. It was just like a dream, a lifetime in the dream, but when he woke up, only a few hours had passed. Innumerable guesses rose up in Ling Han's mind, and there was also a chill that spread from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 362. According to historical records, more than 9,000 years ago, there was a great chaos and a great calamity. Countless people died, and as a result, there was a gap in martial art and alchemy Tao. Afterwards, the Heaven's Sword sect, the Absolute Saber sect, and other sects stood out and joined forces to quell the chaos. Only then was there peace for more than 8,000 years. Compared to the calamity of annihilation at that time, the fighting and killing now was simply a piece of cake. Ling Han had a guess. The great chaos at that time had been caused by the party represented by those three old men. They were of the same race as Zi Shuexian, and wanted to bring her back to the immortal realm, but were rejected by Zi Shuexian, who wanted to live and die with the lower realm. Ling Han had also seen her end with his own eyes. Though he had not seen the final scene of her dying in battle, without the thunder battle armor, her heart had also been destroyed, and there were still two immortal-level pursuers behind her. How could she have survived? Zi Shuexian was a disciple of the Blue Thunder sect, and now, the Blue Thunder sect was established in the Middle State. It was said that they were one of the main forces that had resisted the Great Chaos all those years ago. According to what he had said, the clansmen of Zi Shuexian should have nothing to do with the Blue Thunder sect. They had only discovered that there were clansmen of their own in this sect, and thus wanted to bring them back to the realm of immortals. Jiang Yufeng and several hundred other heaven-tier elites battled a single shattering void-tier elite. Judging by the time, it was extremely possible that that person was an invader from the realm of immortals, or even an immortal. However, he was suppressed by the power of the realm, and could only possess the battle prowess of the shattering void tier. In the end, he was dragged along by so many heaven-tier elites and died. It made sense in theory. But the problem was, why did the realm of immortals want to invade the lower realm? In everyone's opinion, the immortal realm should be rich in resources, with godly medicines growing everywhere. Just picking a random stock and consuming it would allow an ordinary person to instantly become a god. Even if they did not become a god, they would still be able to charge up to the heaven tier, shattering void tier, or something like that. Such a rich and fertile place, which part of the vast lands would it be compared to? It was just like how many great forces in the northern region disdained the desolate north. So what if they occupied the desolate north? Only unranked forces would want to fight for a place in the desolate north. Could it be that there was also such a force in the immortal realm, and because they could no longer survive in the immortal realm, they ran over to the lower realm? No, that was not right. Those three old men had said that they wanted to bring Zi Shuexian back, which meant that they did not intend to stay here for long. Furthermore, Zi Shuexian had also mentioned that the other party wanted to exterminate the entire human race. This was not something that a conqueror would do. Is a ruler still a ruler without his subjects? The key was Zi Shuexian's last sentence. She said that everything the people of the future generations had heard was a lie. What did that mean? Judging from her age, she must be referring to the catastrophe nearly 10,000 years ago. That's fake, just a lie. Ling Han could not help but feel a headache coming on. What had originally been a very logical story seemed to have been completely overturned by Zi Shuexian's brainless words. But Zi Shuexian did not hesitate to fight to the death to deliver these words. Could she possibly be joking? Of course not. Come, he definitely had to make a trip to Infinite Boundless Mountain's Clear Harmony Palace Hall, and find the answer that Zi Shuexian had buried. He knew where Infinite Boundless Mountain was. The central region. Of course, whether or not it was still called Infinite Boundless Mountain was uncertain. Moreover, after 10,000 years, could the Clear Harmony Hall still stand? Let's talk about it later. Ling Han sighed. You clearly had the memory crystal on hand, so why didn't you just directly record all the answers within, instead forcing me to make another trip to Infinite Boundless Mountain? Small tower, can you restore this battle armor? He asked. No. Small tower swayed left and right. This was its action of shaking its head, and if it nodded, it would sway back and forth. Ling Han already understood. It paused, then said, but, I can dispel the impurities within, so this battle armor should still be able to be used for a while. Ling Han was overjoyed, and said, then come quickly. Small tower shook slightly, and a mighty force surged out. The thunder battle armor immediately floated in mid-air, trembling slightly. Z, 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 the vein-like patterns lit up and dimmed. But after a while, this battle armor fell to the ground with a paw. That's enough, Small Tower said expressionlessly. Ling Han was no longer surprised. Back then, it had also wiped out the tool spirit of the demon birth sword with such ease and joy, not to mention that this was only a damaged 10th level spirit tool. He put on the thunder battle armor, and attempted to activate this spirit tool. Z, 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 the vein-like patterns lit up, and instantly, there were innumerable lightning leaping around his body. Not only his torso, but his entire body, forming a layer of lightning barrier. Ling Han raised his hand, and xiao, a blazing white lightning ray opened up and shot into the distance, turning into a sharp sword. He threw another punch, and the lightning ray turned into a blazing white fist with terrifying might. He gave a long howl, and both his hands struck out repeatedly. Xiao, 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 fist chi and sword chi shot out together, and with the support of the thunder battle armor, they turned into blazing white lightning swords and lightning fists. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh loudly. This thunder battle armor increased his battle prowess by at least 5 stars, and this was only in terms of attack. He hadn't tried it in terms of defense, but he believed that the defense of this lightning barrier definitely wouldn't be weak. Presently, he could only activate a portion of the vein-like patterns on the thunder battle armor, which meant that as his cultivation level increased, the power of the thunder battle armor would also increase accordingly. However, its limit couldn't possibly reach the shattering void tier, because the 2 large holes in the front and back were still there, and with a portion of the vein-like patterns missing, it couldn't possibly display its strongest might again. Zi Shuxian, I haven't had many dealings with you in the past, but the choice you made really impressed me. Don't worry, I will definitely find the answer you left behind, and won't let the disaster repeat itself. Ling Han said cautiously. After making a promise, he put on his jacket. The thunder battle armor was a high-level spirit tool, and could actually be adjusted according to the user's physique. Thus, even though he was obviously taller than Zi Shuxian, he didn't feel the slightest bit of tightness wearing it. There was also that bottle. Ling Han opened it, and there was only a drop of purple-colored blood inside, exuding a powerful aura. It immediately made his skin feel as if it was being cut by a knife, as if it was about to split open. Zi Shuxian's blood? Ling Han closed the bottle. This might be the key to opening the place where Zi Shuxian had buried the answer in the Clear Harmony Palace Hall, so he couldn't use it now. He exited the Black Tower. There was still some time before dinner, and if he wanted to go to the Duan residence, it would have to be late at night, and it was still a bit early now. Since he had nothing to do, he called Lu Yutong and the others over, and began to teach them martial arts. First, he asked them to tell him about the problems they had encountered during cultivation, and he would answer them one by one. After that, he taught different cultivation techniques and martial arts techniques according to the differences of each person. Lu Yutong didn't need to be taught. Zhu Wujiu also practiced the sword, and Ling Han also taught him the 4 seasons sword technique. Can you practice the saber? Unfortunately, Ling Han didn't obtain any supreme saber technique from the setting Sun Saber Emperor, but there was no lack of saber techniques in his mind. Thus, he found a Black Demon Saber technique for Can Yi to learn. This was a black-grade high-level martial arts technique, and it was one of the better ones at this level, almost entering Earth grade. At present, Lu Yutong was in the 8th layer of the Gushing Spring tier, while Zhu Wujiu was in the 5th layer of the Gushing Spring tier. Their power had improved greatly, and this was naturally due to the effects of alchemical pills. Ling Han warned them repeatedly that when they reached the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier, they definitely couldn't be in a rush to break through. They had to strengthen their foundations to the point that they couldn't rely on, and only then would they be able to take the next step. Otherwise, the cultivation that was built up through the accumulation of alchemical pills would really be too weak, and it would be impossible for them to climb to the highest tier. At night, Guang Yuan finally went downstairs to have dinner together. Then, they quietly waited for the arrival of midnight. In the midst of the sword Qi, the red hair danced in the air, and this red-furred monster was instantly shaved clean by Ling Han, revealing a body that looked like a dried corpse. There were even a few tattered pieces of cloth on it. Luo Heng. A martial artist said in a trembling voice, "He's Luo Heng, I recognize the tattoo on his hand." Ling Han focused his gaze, and sure enough, there was a tattoo on the red-furred monster's arm. Although it was hard to distinguish, one could still make out that it was the image of a fierce tiger. Everyone was shocked. Luo Heng was one of the first to enter the second floor, and was turned into a dried corpse by the blood-sucking bugs. Why did he suddenly turn into a red-furred monster and come back to life? There's another one. Someone discovered the seventh red-furred monster, although it had just stood up shakily, and hadn't joined the battle yet. Where's Su Ming's corpse? Someone asked in a trembling voice. Everyone was speechless. This dried corpse could turn into a red-furred monster, so why couldn't it be torn apart? What kind of damned place was this? The dead could also come back to life, although it couldn't be considered a true resurrection. Ling Han drew his sword, activating the 2 patterns on the demon birth sword. He didn't believe that even a level 10 spirit tool couldn't kill these monsters. Pu, his figure flashed, and one strike after another, forcibly splitting the red-furred monster into 2 pieces. However, a strange scene appeared. The 2 pieces of the red-furred monster actually stuck together again, and became one again. An undying monster, Ling Han made a prompt decision, and said, "To the 3rd floor." Yu Kaiyu and Guang Yuan obviously wouldn't have the slightest objection to his words, and immediately climbed the stairs, charging towards the 3rd floor. Ling Han put away the demon birth sword, and also leapt onto the stairs. Even someone with such powerful battle prowess like Ling Han ran away, so how would the others dare to stay? These red-furred monsters couldn't be killed at all, and even if someone hit a spiritual infant tier law decree, could it suppress them? Although Ling Han climbed the stairs later than Guang Yuan and Yu Kaiyu, he caught up from behind. With a big stride, he was the first to enter the 3rd floor. The scenery immediately changed. This was actually a primeval forest. There were tall trees everywhere, and countless old vines intertwined, thicker than houses. Who knew how many years it had been growing for it to reach such a scale? However, in the extreme distance, a divine temple was currently standing at the peak of a mountain, radiating a brilliant golden light. Xiao, Guang Yuan and Yu Kaiyu also leapt out, and then more people appeared. However, not a single red-furred monster charged up, as if each floor had a strict limit. A beast's roar rang out in the distance, as if it could tear apart the sky. Everyone was shocked. Even though they were so far away, they could still feel the terrifying deterrence contained in that roar. It was at least a flower blossom tier existence, or even a spiritual infant tier demonic beast. What to do now? Below, there were unkillable red-furred monsters, and above, there were flower blossom tier and even spiritual infant tier demonic beasts. It was truly a dilemma. Ling Han, however, only looked at the golden divine temple on the distant mountain peak. He had a feeling that there, he might be able to obtain the answer regarding the secret of this divine temple. Let's go. He nodded towards Guang Yuan and Yu Kaiyu. The 3 of them set off, walking towards the divine temple in the distance. The others all shrugged. The mountain peak wasn't far, but they definitely wouldn't be close if they walked all the way there. Who knew how many terrifying demonic beasts they would encounter? Let's charge back. That's right. Although the red-furred monster can't be killed, its own battle prowess isn't ridiculously strong. It's still stronger than spiritual infant tier demonic beasts. Let's go back. Most people wanted to retreat, and only a few people decided to follow Ling Han and the others forward. At least, the 3 of them would scout ahead, and if there was any danger, the 3 of them would be the first to bear it. However, these people were immediately dumbfounded because Ling Han summoned the golem. The three of them all stood on the golem's back, and the large golem carried them towards the mountain peak. Chapter 364. Ling Han almost fell over. Where did this guy come from? When did you become blind? He asked in annoyance. Yukayu laughed mischievously, and said, if you didn't lie to the little girl, why would Hunyo keep nagging me that your nose? Ling Han was dumbfounded. Hunyo was really a mischievous little girl, and was also very smart. She knew that Yukayu was her cousin, so she changed the path of relatives. If she could still find his mother, with the little girl's skill, would she be able to make Yu Hongchang smile from ear to ear and acknowledge her as her little wife? In another 10 years or so, the little girl would become a big girl, and for a genius like Ling Han, breaking through to the flower blossom tier was a sure thing. Then, 10 years for a lifespan of at least a few hundred years was not a matter of the blink of an eye. Ling Han couldn't help but shake his head. How did Hunyo's little brain grow? Since you like the little girl, then let me have the other two big girls. Yukayu said, arching his arm around Ling Han's shoulder. Ha, ha. Ling Han laughed, and said, one of them is my little female attendant, and the other is my alchemy apprentice. Think about it yourself, if you marry one of them, what would you call me? Pei, you're too despicable, occupying the toilet but not taking a shit. I despise you. Yukayu said, filled with righteous indignation. Less nonsense, we've arrived at the Duan residence. Ling Han pressed his hand down. They had already arrived in front of the Duan residence. Isn't this Duan Jingji's home? Yukayu looked very strange. You know him? Ling Han asked. Sort of, he's come to visit the sect before. After all, he's a spiritual pedestal tier warrior with impressive strength, and the Sea Breeze City is right under our sect's feet. Every move he makes has wide implications. With the appearance of such a powerful warrior, he would have to report to our sect no matter what and express his stance. He wouldn't break the rules of our sect, Yukayu said with a nod. He paused for a moment, then said, what are we doing here? Don't tell me you want to have sex with someone's daughter who is only a few years old. Screw you. Ling Han rolled his eyes. As he undid the warning array formation, he said, you'll know in a moment. I hope you won't yell all over the place. Who do you think I am? I don't even have that much self-control, Yukayu snorted. 10 minutes later. What the hell? What the hell? Yukayu's face turned pale. Is this really a fucking place for the living? Why isn't there a single person? Ling Han and Guang Yuan looked at each other and smiled. They had deliberately brought Yukayu around the residence first, and the result was that this empty environment caused Yukayu's hair to stand on end. Come. As Ling Han walked, he told Yukayu about the dispute between Guang Yuan and Duan Jingji. Only then did Yukayu realize why they had come here. But now, his curiosity was piqued. What was going on with the Duan mansion? Why did everyone disappear in the middle of the night? They arrived at the great hall that they had seen during the day, and began to search carefully. But this secret passage seemed to be extraordinarily well hidden. They searched for an hour, but still couldn't find its location. Ling Han stopped, and activated the Eye of Truth. Pain, pain, pain. Previously, when battling the 7 sons of Ao family, Ling Han had overused the Eye of Truth, and it hadn't completely recovered yet. Now, the moment he activated the Eye of Truth, a stream of blood flowed down from his right eye, looking very frightening. He hurriedly withdrew his mystical power. With a sweep just now, he had discovered the location of the secret passage. This was really very easy. But the secret passage was easy to find, but the mechanism to activate was hard to say. Ling Han shook his head, and said, if this is an underground tomb, then where did all the living people run to? This was the most puzzling part. Again. The three of them continued forward, and a cross-shaped fork appeared in front of them. More doors appeared. Continue forward. Ling Han was determined. He would definitely explore this place to the end. They continued forward, and suddenly, an intense stench wafted over, as if there was a mountain of corpses in front of them. It was enough to make people faint from the stench. The three of them did not look good, and their faces were pale from the disgust. They held their breaths. With the abilities of the spiritual ocean tier, it was definitely not a problem for them to hold their breaths for an hour or so. An underground river appeared in front of them, and floating in the river were corpses after corpses. This house was pitifully small in the first place, and with another person entering, there was practically no space to move around. It was extremely cramped. Guang Yuan attacked madly. He was already beyond furious, he wanted to kill Duan Jingji. That's a corpse soldier. Through a special method, a corpse is refined into something like a puppet, Ling Han said. If it weren't for the fact that it requires human remains as materials, such a creation could really be called a genius. You're actually impressed. Yu Kaiyu sucked in his teeth. From a certain perspective, yes, but... Ling Han's gaze turned cold. This 1,000-corpse sect must be eliminated. I agree with that, but now, it seems that it's even difficult for us to escape, Yu Kaiyu said. Don't worry, I've said that we can leave safely. Ling Han smiled calmly. He stretched out his left hand, and pressed it towards the person in the coffin. Multiple black patterns appeared. This was the power of regulation obtained after refining demonic qi. Previously, Feng Yan's entire left leg was gone when he touched it. Pooh! He pressed down with his palm, and a large hole instantly appeared in the chest of the person in the coffin. However, that person opened his eyes, and used his deathly pale eyes to stare at Ling Han. But in the next instant, his head tilted to one side, and he died completely. Chapter 366. Duan Jingji. Guang Yuan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He clashed fiercely with that corpse soldier, wanting to chase away this obstacle and catch up to Duan Jingji to demand justice from him. However, the corpse soldier was unafraid of death and pain, and did not yield an inch, battling fiercely with him. Strange, Duan Jingji left just like that. Yu Kaiyu was surprised. If a spiritual pedestal tier elite attacked, then taking down 3 spiritual ocean tier elites like them would be a piece of cake. Ling Han smiled, and said, Duan Jingji should have full confidence, so he didn't bother to attack. Now that we're surrounded, you can still laugh. Yu Kaiyu said, gritting his teeth. Then what expression do you want me to give? Ling Han laughed loudly, and said heroically, don't worry, since I brought you guys out, I'll bring you guys back. I hope it's not 3 corpses. Yu Kaiyu sighed. Not 3 corpses, but 3 corpse soldiers. A voice came from outside the door, but it wasn't Duan Jingji, but another man. There's someone else. Yu Kaiyu's expression changed. Ling Han rolled his eyes at him, and said, isn't that obvious? How many people are there in the Duan residence? If they were all corpse soldiers, then wouldn't they all be exposed in the day? They're the true disciples of the 1,000-corpse sect, and corpse soldiers are just tools. A young man actually knows so much about our sect. A surprised voice came from outside. Ling Han nodded at Yu Kaiyu, and said, go help Brother Guang, we'll charge out. Yu Kaiyu nodded, and immediately leaped over Guang Yuan's head, launching a punch towards that corpse soldier. Just now, Guang Yuan and the corpse soldier had clashed head-on, and both were retreating. Yu Kaiyu followed up with another punch, instantly causing the corpse soldier to retreat repeatedly. Why do I have to listen to that brat? Yu Kaiyu scratched his head. Just now, he didn't think carefully and just followed Ling Han's words. Now that he thought about it, he felt gloomy, he was the senior brother. Guang Yuan, however, took up his position and punched out again. The stone room was much bigger. After 3 punches, the corpse soldier was forced out. Ling Han and the other 2 took the opportunity to rush out, but when they saw the scene outside, they couldn't help but grit their teeth. There were a lot of corpse soldiers, but there were also a lot of normal-looking people. Obviously, these were the disciples of the Thousand Corpse sect, the people who controlled the corpse soldiers. That's the 3rd elder of the Zhang family, Zhang Hu. Yu Kaiyu suddenly exclaimed, pointing at a corpse soldier. Then, he pointed at another corpse soldier. Li Dingyi of the Li family. He pointed at the 3rd corpse soldier. Gu Shuntong of the Gu family. He counted them one by one and counted at least 10 corpse soldiers. He couldn't help but be aghast. You guys are truly insane. These people are already dead, yet you still dig them up and refine them into corpse soldiers. Tisk, TSK, what do you mean insane? They're already dead anyway, so wouldn't it be better to let them play a part and make some contributions? A man close to 50 years old said. And you 3, when we make our move later, we'll try to be gentle and not damage your bodies too severely. 3 spiritual ocean tier warriors, if we're lucky, the corpse soldiers refined can also retain this kind of strength. Lunatics, all lunatics. Yu Kaiyu said sternly. He took out a pair of boxing gloves from his spatial ring and put them on, immediately activating them. Streaks of golden patterns lit up, and his fighting spirit soared into the sky like the flames of war. Kill them. The people of the Thousand Corpse sect controlled the corpse soldiers and surrounded Ling Han and the other 2. Limited by tier and the conditions for raising corpses, the disciples of the Thousand Corpse sect could normally only raise 1 corpse soldier, and a few could raise 2. The disciples here were obviously normal, and couldn't possibly have 3 lives corpse caskets like Rong Huan Xian, so each of them only raised 1 corpse soldier. However, there were more than a dozen people here, so naturally there were also more than a dozen corpse soldiers. Every one of them was in the spiritual ocean tier, and was a first-tier silver-armored corpse. With absolute numbers, along with the corpse soldier's characteristic of not fearing death or injury, wouldn't it be easy to deal with 3 spiritual ocean tier warriors? Both Yu Kaiyu and Guang Yuan had stern expressions on their faces, especially Guang Yuan. He wanted to seek justice for Nong Qingyu, so he had to protect his own life even more. The weak would only howl in grief, while the strong would speak through their fists. Corpse soldiers had no emotions and couldn't speak. Under orders, they charged towards Ling Han and the other 2. Yu Kaiyu and Guang Yuan immediately moved. Peng, 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 they were already fighting with the corpse soldiers. Neither of them had any experience fighting corpse soldiers, so they treated corpse soldiers as if they were humans, causing them to be surrounded by danger. This was because you could punch a martial artist in the head and force them to retreat, but corpse soldiers didn't care so much. If you wanted to fight, just fight. I'll also punch you in the head, or wipe your throat. If a corpse soldier was hit, the worst that could happen was that their head would be smashed crooked or knocked off. It was fine, they could just put it back. But if a martial artist was hit by this move, would he still be alive? However, the 2 of them had rich battle experience and quickly adjusted, but they still couldn't deal with the corpse soldiers. That was because no matter how injured these things were, it wouldn't affect their battle prowess. How could they fight? You guys are too weak. It's been half a day, and you still haven't cleaned up these things. Ling Han sighed. It's easy for you to say that. Why don't you come and try? Yu Kaiyu said grumpily. He and Guang Yuan each had to deal with 7 corpse soldiers, and each of them seemed to have indestructible bodies. Being able to last until now was because of his shocking battle prowess. If he only had around 9 stars, he would definitely have been overwhelmed by now. Ling Han laughed, and said, You really want me to do it? Nonsense, hurry up, I'm about to die of exhaustion. Yu Kaiyu urged. He was quite confident in Ling Han's battle prowess. Let's make a bet. In just 10 breaths, I can kill all these corpse soldiers. Ling Han wasn't in a hurry. Ha! Yu Kaiyu naturally didn't believe him. Although he also hoped that Ling Han could show off his invincible might and solve the predicament of the three of them, he could only barely resist. But Ling Han could kill so many corpse soldiers in 10 breaths. That was clearly impossible. What are we betting on? He was a careless person and was very unconvinced. I haven't thought of it yet, but do one thing for me in the future. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, don't worry, it will definitely be within your ability. Alright, then hurry up. If you can really kill these corpse soldiers, I'll even owe you my life. Yu Kaiyu cried out. The 7 corpse soldiers were giving him more and more pressure. Ling Han snickered. His figure moved, and he attacked a corpse soldier. He threw a punch, and black demonic patterns intertwined on his fist. Bang! He clashed head-on with a corpse soldier, and his entire body was immediately sent flying, showing that his strength was actually inferior to that corpse soldier's. However, the strange thing was that the corpse soldier's arm began to soften, as if it had turned into a skeleton, turning into dust under the corrosion of time. Chapter 367. On the 3rd floor of the Divine Temple, in the Golden Temple that was 10 times smaller, 18 chains locked a red-haired monster. It did not move for a long time, as if it was a dead person. However, after an unknown period of time, a red light surged on its body. It was a drop of blood. Originally, the blood-sucking Bug King had pierced its mouth into its heart. As long as a drop of blood was produced, it would be sucked away. However, now that the Bug King was gone, this drop of blood was preserved. A miraculous scene appeared. As the blood flowed, the red-haired monster actually glowed with an astonishing vitality. The hair on its body was also constantly receding, revealing pale skin that stuck tightly to its bones. This was actually a female, but now she was like a dried corpse, without even a strand of hair. One could only say that her appearance was terrifying and frightening. However, after a good while, the second drop of blood was produced, once again flowing through her body. Her vitality was even more abundant, her skin quickly becoming moist and smooth. Her buttocks were also raised high, a head of long red hair growing out, reaching her buttocks, also covering her private parts, leaving behind a hazy scene. This was a great beauty, her red lips like fire, her eyebrows like a painting, full of bewitching allure. Pooh! A pair of black wings unfurled on her back, forming bat wings. There was not a single feather, each piece 3 meters long. She stretched, appearing somewhat lazy, but it made the 2 proud places of her body stand out even more. Ding, ding, dang, 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 the iron chains gave off crisp sounds. She clapped her hands, and said, trapping this lady for 100,000 years, so boring. Without the suppression of the blood-devouring insects, this demon suppression chain can't trap this lady for long. She released her divine perception to sense, suddenly laughed loudly, and said to herself, the Wind-Wing race suppressed this lady, but they were afraid that killing this lady would provoke the powerful figures of my race to eliminate them. They only sealed this lady, and then used the blood-devouring insect king to absorb this lady's blood essence, not giving this lady the chance to escape. I heard that the Wind-Wing race made a contract with the blood-devouring insect king, for the Wind-Wing race to forever worship the blood-devouring insect king in exchange for the blood-devouring insect king suppressing this lady. I didn't expect that the Wind-Wing race had already cut off their worship tens of thousands of years ago. No wonder that insect king was furious. Strange, why does this lady feel that this isn't the ancient land of the Wind-Wing race, but rather like being pushed into some strange space, don't care so much, the urgent matter is to escape, and then find that human youngster. On his body, this lady seems to sense some amazing treasure. Ling Han and the other 2 continued to run wildly, and only after traveling another few hundred miles did they heave a sigh of relief. Although the swarm of insects was large, it wasn't shocking when placed in such a large world, and the powerful one was only that super insect king. As long as that guy didn't catch up, there was nothing to be afraid of. The three stopped to regulate their breathing. The spiritual qi here was too abundant, and they had to cultivate for enough time every day, or else it would be a huge waste. The rock spirit, on the other hand, asked Ling Han for a few stone pillars, and started munching on them. A few hours later, the three of them had finished their cultivation, and their realms had improved a little. The harvest this time is really great. Yu took out a jade bottle, which contains spiritual liquid, but they didn't know what it was. They only knew that it was definitely something good, but as for how to use it, they could only stare. Although spiritual liquid was good, it couldn't be eaten indiscriminately. If it exceeded one's own tier by too much, then one's body would explode and die. If one died from eating spiritual medicine, that would be too embarrassing. Ling Han took it and said, "I'll study it for a bit, and should know how to use it. Let's eat meat first." He took out the corpse of the tiger-headed crocodile-bodied great beast, and started a fire to cook it. This was a king tier beast of the flower blossom tier. If they ate it whole, it was guaranteed that the three of them would explode and die, unable to digest such benefits at all. Thus, Ling Han only cut off one of its legs. The pot for cooking wasn't a normal iron pot, but a medicinal cauldron used to refine pills. Because extremely high temperatures were needed to cook flower blossom tier beast meat until it was tender, a normal iron pot would have long melted into molten iron. As a matter of fact, Ling Han even used strange fire, completely refining this pot of meat as a medicinal pill. He added a lot of precious medicine from the Black Tower, and quite a few reached 1,000 years old. He also added a few absolute cold ice heart fish. He believed that this pot of nourishment could make spiritual pedestal tier warriors have a nosebleed. Yu and Guang Yuan went to set up a tent, and after they were done, Ling Han summoned Li Xichan from the Black Tower. This gave Yu a fright, but Ling Han and Guang Yuan both said that Li Xichan ran over just as they arrived, making him extremely puzzled. When did his senses become so weak that he didn't even know a gushing spring tier warrior ran over? Moreover, wasn't this too much of a coincidence? They fled for their lives and didn't care about the direction at all, so why did Li Xichan coincidentally also run in this direction? However, after a few cups of wine, he immediately forgot about this matter completely. The four of them began to eat the fish and meat. Li Xichan only took a small bite, and her whole body emitted multicolored light again. She had no choice but to sit on the side and circulate a cultivation technique to refine the majestic medicinal essence inside her body. A king tier great beast at the level of the flower blossom tier, what kind of great tonic was this? Even Yu and Guang Yuan only ate a small bowl each and had no choice but to stop, hurriedly going to the side to circulate and refine it. Only Ling Han ate bowl after bowl, as if he had transformed into the glutton Hu Niu, making Yu Yu's eyeballs practically fall out. He was sure that if he ate so much precious meat, he would definitely be stuffed to death. Ling Han savored the delicacy, but sighed inwardly. His spiritual pedestal was too imposing, and there were two of them. The accumulation needed for him to advance a small tier was enough for others to advance a dozen times. This was the price that had to be paid for being invincible in the same tier. Ling Han felt both pain and happiness as he ate madly, and very soon, he finished the whole pot of fish soup. Only then did he begin to circulate the 5 elements heaven-grade skill to refine the medicinal effects. His whole body emitted divine light, and an intense change also happened inside his body. The indestructible heaven scroll circulated, and was currently upgrading his physique from the iron sheet tier to the diamond tier, but this step required too much of the essence of the precious medicine, and it definitely couldn't be accomplished in a short period of time. The awkward thing was that the indestructible heaven scroll extracted most of the essence of the precious medicine, leaving him pitifully little to use to increase his cultivation. He wanted to increase his cultivation first, but what could he do? The 5 elements heaven-grade skill couldn't compete with the indestructible heaven scroll, leaving him helpless. Forget it, having a strong physique was naturally a good thing. Moreover, even if he reached the diamond tier, he would only be able to complete the first layer of the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and Ling Han still didn't know how many layers this cultivation technique had, because he didn't understand the following cultivation techniques at all. It should be because his cultivation level was too low. Ling Han entered the tent, pretending to rest for a while, but actually entered into the Black Tower. He wanted to study that spiritual liquid. Chapter 369. The biggest advantage of using origin crystals to cultivate was that there was no time limit. Martial artists absorbed spiritual qi and converted it into origin crystals, which required the consumption of divine sense to activate the spirit base and achieve the effect of absorbing spiritual qi. If one used origin crystals to cultivate, they could skip the step of converting spiritual qi into origin power, greatly saving divine sense. So, this time could be extended by at least 2 or 3 times, almost able to cultivate for an entire day, and then sleep. When they woke up, their divine sense would naturally recover, and they could continue cultivating. This was also why disciples of large sects advanced so quickly. They not only had large amounts of spirit medicine to break through the shackles of Tyr, but also endless origin crystals to speed up the accumulation of origin power. In only half an hour, 100 origin crystals were completely refined. Ling Han hissed. He was already so fierce now, and when he reached the flower blossom tier and the deity transformation tier, wouldn't his body become a bottomless pit? How many origin crystals would he need to ensure that his cultivation speed wouldn't drop? Fortunately, I have the Black Tower with its own medicinal garden, speeding up the growth of spirit herbs. Otherwise, where would I get so many high-quality origin crystals? 1-star origin crystal was almost useless for the spiritual pedestal tier, and to reach the deity transformation tier, one would need at least 5-star origin crystals to speed up cultivation. In his last life, he wasn't so freakish, so the medicinal pills he concocted along with some origin crystals could support his flying cultivation speed, but now, he continued to cultivate. Piles of origin crystals shattered, and origin power was absorbed by him, increasing his cultivation. However, I don't have any bottlenecks in cultivation now. As long as there's a huge supply of origin crystals, tier advancement is still very fast. Ling Han smiled slightly. In about another 10 days, he would be able to advance into the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier. After another few hours, there was a rumbling sound, and the entire basement was flattened. This meant that the people of the Duan residence had finished all the evacuation work. Time to leave. Ling Han's figure flashed out of the Black Tower. Immediately, he felt pressure because he was buried in a pile of ruins. He was already prepared, and the thunder battle armor activated, releasing a terrifying power of lightning. Pa, 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 the surrounding bricks were instantly shattered, and a space was forcibly blasted out. He walked calmly, the thunder battle armor constantly releasing electricity. He easily walked out of the ruins and arrived on the ground. At this moment, the entire Duan residence was in a complete mess. There was a raging fire, and many people from outside the residence came to put out the fire. Ling Han used his movement technique and quickly left. In a remote alley, he summoned Yu Kai-yu and Guang Yuan from the Black Tower, then shot out a pillar of water, spraying it on the two of them. Ah! The two of them jumped up at the same time, assuming a defensive stance. However, they immediately revealed confused expressions, because their memories were still stuck at the time when they had been attacked by Duan Jingji and Nong Qingyu. Why are we here? Hiss, my head hurts a little. I remember now, it was you who knocked me out. Yu Kai-yu stared at Ling Han. Ling Han hurriedly shook his head, and righteously said, your eyes must be blurred. How could I hit you? I used a great universal teleportation talisman to bring us out of the Duan residence. You guys couldn't bear the powerful force of teleportation, so you fainted. This made Yu Kai-yu and Guang Yuan dumbfounded. Duan Zhengji sneered, and said, "If I don't cut off your head, how would I have the face to see Elder Nine Clouds?" Ling Han cracked a smile, and said, "You're so confident that you can take me down? If you didn't have the instant teleportation talisman, would you be able to escape from me?" Duan Zhengji sneered. "I don't believe that you still have such a precious thing, then I'm afraid you'll be disappointed," Ling Han said with a smile, and directly entered the Black Tower. Unless he used the power boost from the Black Tower, he would definitely not be able to kill someone in the middle stage of the spiritual pedestal tier with his current cultivation of the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. The main reason was that the difference in power was too great. When the difference in power reached a certain level, it would form a crushing effect. As the saying went, one power could break all techniques, no technique could make up for it. Moreover, he still had to hand Duan Zhengji over to Guang Yuan to kill. If Guang Yuan didn't personally avenge such a great enmity, then Guang Yuan wouldn't be able to rest in peace even after 100 years. Duan Zhengji was greatly shocked. He had never imagined that Ling Han actually had an instant teleportation talisman. One had to know that this kind of thing was really too precious. It was a divine item that could save one's life, and it had long been lost in the ancient times. Not only did Ling Han have it, he had more than one, which made him completely dumbfounded. This brat has been tainted by the Yin Qi of the Great Tomb, and within half a year, he won't be able to hide from my nose. I'll definitely find him again and kill him, he said in his heart. Ling Han cultivated in the Black Tower for a while, then left in a flash. Hunyo also ran out, the little girl was going to stick to him again. Ling Han held her little hand and walked forwards. Indeed, 10 miles away, that carriage was waiting for him. When the two coachmen saw that Ling Han actually appeared with a little girl, they couldn't help but be extremely shocked. Who would encounter such a thing? Encountering an enemy on the way, and in the end, when he reappeared, there was an additional little girl who was as pretty as a statue carved out of jade. Ling Han naturally did not pay attention to their confusion, and had no intention of explaining. He boarded the carriage with Hunyo, and continued to advance. But after a mere day, Duan Zhengji caught up to them again. Ling Han used the same trick and entered the Black Tower. At first, he thought it was because of the carriage, so this time, he directly let the carriage return. He could just hire a new one, all right. But after a mere day, he was once again stopped by Duan Zhengji. He shook off Duan Zhengji for the third time, and even changed his appearance again inside the Black Tower. He hired a third carriage, but after a single day, he was found by Duan Zhengji for the fourth time. Ha, so you are also proficient in the art of disguise. Duan Zhengji laughed coldly. Ling Han rubbed his chin, and said, "Then in that case, you should have some special method to be able to discover me from a very far distance, and not because you're clever and found me through some clues." Take your time to guess. Duan Zhengji naturally would not reveal his secret. Who knew how many instant teleportation talismans Ling Han still had on him? According to the old rules, I should leave now. No need to send me off. Ling Han did not waste any time, and immediately entered the Black Tower. Duan Zhengji was astonished. How many instant teleportation talismans did this guy have on him? Why was there no end to them? He leaped, and began to search for Ling Han all over the mountains and plains. After entering into the Black Tower, Ling Han immediately used the power of the Black Tower to scan his own body, searching for any martial intent that had been planted on him by someone, which was why Duan Zhengji was always able to find him. But the result was that he was very normal. He could not help but feel strange. What was going on? Guang Yuan is about to break through. At that time, I'll throw Duan Zhengji to him. Ling Han thought for a moment, and made a decision. He was too lazy to leave the Black Tower, so he continued to cultivate inside. Another 3 days later, he broke through to the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and 2 pieces of good news came respectively. Guang Yuan broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier, while Kan Yi broke through to the spiritual ocean tier. Similarly, surpassing 5 stars to battle, the flower blossom tier was at least comparable to the spiritual pedestal tier's 10 stars, because the higher the tier, the harder it was to surpass one's tier to battle. Could it be that the formation spirit didn't consider this? They all did. Previously, there were 15 flower blossom tier warriors here, and now there were still 15, which meant that not a single flower blossom tier warrior entered the top 3. This made them feel unfair. The formation spirit definitely didn't consider the difficulty of the tier. I don't accept it. I don't accept it either. We all don't accept it. Everyone shouted one after another, wanting the formation spirit to give an explanation. The formation spirit appeared, and said, "You guys are doubting my fairness. Lord Formation Spirit, have you considered the difficulty of surpassing Flower Blossom Tier's tier to battle?" Ao Feng asked courteously. The formation spirit that transformed into a young child sneered, and said, "This lord has lived a few thousand times longer than you, and actually dares to ask this lord such a question. Then, Lord Formation Spirit, say, how many stars did the top 3 surpass?" Someone said, unconvinced. "That's right, tell us. I'd like to know how powerful the top 3 are." The formation spirit paused slightly, and said, "All right, 3rd place, spiritual pedestal tier, defeated a 5th layer flower blossom tier." Pooh! Instantly, many people spurted out, revealing expressions of disbelief. Who didn't know the gap between the spiritual pedestal tier and the flower blossom tier? This was an insurmountable chasm, but a spiritual pedestal tier actually defeated a flower blossom tier, and at the 5th layer flower blossom tier at that. Wasn't this a huge joke? Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 372. Everyone was very excited. Though they had not personally experienced it, when they heard Ling Han say that he had been pursued by Duan Zhengji these past few days, all of them were filled with pent-up anger. Now that the boiling blood pill had been concocted, they could finally wave the flag of their counterattack. Ling Han left the city and headed south, but he had only walked for about 100 miles when Duan Zhengji appeared like a maggot attached to a bone. "Brat, where are you running to this time?" Duan Zhengji smirked coldly. Previously, Ling Han had not used an instant movement talisman, but had instead risked his speed to escape into the city. What did this mean? Ling Han had already run out of instant movement talismans, or rather, he only had 1 or 2 left, and had to save them to save his life. "However, I do have some admiration for you. You obviously don't have any means to save your life, yet you still dare to leave the city alone," he continued. He was trying to get information from Ling Han, wanting to know if he still had any instant movement talismans in his possession. Ling Han smiled calmly, and said, "Who said I left the city alone? Oh, could it be that you invited an elite?" Duan Zhengji was slightly shocked. There was indeed no such idiot in this world. Knowing that he was being pursued by an elite of spiritual pedestal tier, he would still casually and deliberately leave the city to die. However, when he spread out his divine sense, he did not discover anyone lying in ambush nearby. In reality, he had kept an eye on Ling Han for a long time before revealing himself. Firstly, he had gone far enough, so Ling Han could not possibly escape back into the city. Secondly, he was sure that there was no elite protecting Ling Han from behind. Without full confidence, how could he possibly reveal himself? Ling Han smiled and raised his right hand lightly. Xiao, Hunyo's figure appeared, and she immediately opened her small arms to hug him, looking very clingy. Duan Zhengji's mouth instantly fell open, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. How was this possible? A living person appeared out of thin air. Could it be that this little girl had used an instant movement talisman to appear? But was there such an instant movement talisman in this world that could actually appear at such an accurate location? Duan Zhengji suddenly had a bad premonition. When a person encountered something that was beyond their understanding, they would definitely feel a sense of helplessness. Nyo, beat him up. Ling Han laughed. Hunyo answered in a crisp voice. Her small figure darted out, and like a flash of lightning, she instantly appeared behind Duan Zhengji. She raised her small fist and delivered a punch towards the back of Duan Zhengji's head. Her speed was too fast, so fast that Duan Zhengji did not have time to dodge or parry. He could only use his origin energy to protect his head and circulate his will of martial art, forming a protective screen. With the power of the spiritual ocean tier and the power of the spiritual pedestal tier, the only result was that Hunyo's fist would be shattered. But was Hunyo that easy to deal with? Her small fist unbelievably bent and smashed downwards. Peng! It hit Duan Zhengji right in the middle of his back. This punch caused Duan Zhengji to stumble, and he almost fell to the ground. Hunyo's attack succeeded, and she immediately displayed her beast-like attacking style. Peng, 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 her small fists swung continuously attacking Duan Zhengji's weak points. Duan Zhengji was dumbstruck. He could only spread out his origin energy regardless of the cost and protect his entire body within it. It was as if he had become a porcupine, and there was absolutely no place for him to attack. If one could obtain such a divine item, then who else in this world would be able to find the location of the Thousand Corpse sect? Ha 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 ha, even the heavens are helping me. He laughed loudly. If he could bring back this divine item, then the fault of the Sea Breeze City branch naturally need not be mentioned. He would receive great rewards, and it would not be impossible for him to directly be conferred the position of Vice Sect Master. In your dreams. Ling Han naturally knew what the other party was thinking. He shook his head, and said, Big Brother Guang, kill him. All right. Guang Yuan spread his hands, and swallowed a vermilion-red alchemical pill. It was naturally the boiling blood pill. Ha, so what if you have advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier? You have just broken through, and you are only in the first layer of cultivation, while I am in the third layer. Furthermore, with the demonic noise saber in hand, killing you is as easy as killing a chicken, Duan Zhengji said disdainfully. He did not want to drag things out, so he immediately took the initiative to attack. With a flying saber strike, the demonic noise was extravagant, piercing through the brain and splitting the heart. Guang Yuan also let out a furious roar. Hong, a terrifying aura surged out from his body, and actually formed multiple whirlwinds around his body. The will of martial art shone within them. Peng, he punched out again. It was the same 4 flashes of fist chi, which also turned into 5 dragon elephants. However, these 5 dragon elephants were at least 10 times larger than the 5 from before. Each of them was 30 meters tall, and shone with a silver light. Chapter 373. Peng, 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 peng. The dragons and elephants crushed down, and the demonic sounds were all annihilated. Previously, the demonic sound had easily shattered the dragon elephant, and had even caused harm to Guang Yuan. However, the tables had turned now. The dragon elephant had crushed the demonic sound, and was charging towards Duan Zhengji with great momentum. Duan Zhengji could not help but turn pale with fright. How was this possible? Guang Yuan's abilities had actually risen to a level that he could only look up to in an instant. Was this the 7th or 8th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier? How could he be so strong? The higher one's cultivation level was, the more one could not afford to be a difference of 1 or 2 layers. Duan Zhengji was only in the 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and even if he had a level 5 spirit tool, his cultivation level of the 7th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier would be enough to suppress him. After all, he wasn't a genius who could fight above his level. He was only able to do so because of the demonic noise blade replica. Go to hell and slowly ponder. Guang Yuan charged out. He didn't have much time, and by then, not only would his cultivation return to its original state, it would even fall to the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Duan Zhengji barely managed to parry the attacks, but he was bombarded by Guang Yuan until he vomited blood repeatedly. In the face of absolute power, his counterattack seemed so weak. Creak! He suddenly let out a strange cry. In just a moment, he saw a coffin slide out from the dense forest, as if it had grown legs. Peng! There was a heavy sound, and a corpse soldier also broke out of the coffin. It was Nong Qingyu. Qingyue. Guang Yuan couldn't help but exclaim. Ha, you must be very happy to see your old lover. Duan Zhengji laughed coldly. Do you have the heart to kill your old lover? Shua, 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 corpse soldiers did not have emotions to speak of. They immediately launched a fierce attack on Guang Yuan, waving their bone claws. There was black corpse qi surging. If one was touched, especially if one saw blood, the corpse qi would enter one's body, and it had to be expelled immediately. Otherwise, the corpse qi would invade one's body, and one would also become a corpse soldier. It was very scary. Guang Yuan could not bear to lay his hands on the remains of his old lover, so he could only keep dodging. However, this gave Duan Zhengji the opportunity to attack wildly. The demonic sound reverberated, and blood splattered continuously from Guang Yuan's body. Ling Han didn't say anything. If Guang Yuan couldn't figure it out and insisted on doing so, it was his business. He had already created an opportunity for Guang Yuan to take revenge, but the other party did not seize it, so he would not give them another opportunity in the future. Ha 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 ha, I know that you have your current battle prowess because you have taken alchemical pills. The problem is, how long can the effects of the alchemical pills last? Duan Zhengji laughed coldly. He had regained the upper hand again. Guang Yuan didn't reply. He only stared at Nong Qingyu in a daze. Although this was a corpse soldier, it was maintained rather well, as if it was sleeping soundly. Rip! Rip! His clothes were torn to shreds, revealing numerous wounds. Black corpse qi overflowed from the wounds like poisonous snakes, wanting to drill into his wounds. Obediently allow the corpse qi to invade you, and I'll do a good deed and refine you into a corpse soldier as well, so that you can pair up with your old lover. Duan Zhengji laughed loudly. The outcome was set, and he was destined to rise up in the 1,000-corpse sect. Die! Guang Yuan suddenly exploded with power, punching out directly at Nong Qingyu's face. Under the terrifying impact, the corpse soldier was directly shattered into pieces. Chapter 374. After dealing with Duan Zhengji, Ling Han obviously did not need to disguise himself anymore. He swayed along the way, and when Ling Han arrived at the extreme Yang city, his cultivation had already reached the middle stage of the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier. However, the bad news was that all his origin crystals had been completely spent, and he was now really penniless. Guang Yuan's cultivation also fell to the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. After cultivating for more than a month, he had just stepped into the second layer, which was about the same as Qin Yi. Even if these two people refined essence crystals day and night, they could only provide 2 pieces a month, and they were only 1 star. So sad. Ling Han sighed. When he entered the extreme Yang city, he handed over the last piece of origin crystal he had on him as the registration fee for entering the city. As long as he registered once, he would not have to pay any fees when he entered the city again in the future. To save money, he didn't even let Lu Yutong and the others come out. Now, the first step was not to find the 2 main ingredients for the spirit supplement pill, but to first earn money. If he didn't have money, did he have to steal or rob? That would require him to have the strength to do so. The extreme Yang city was the economic core of the entire North region. This place was extremely bustling, and two colossal entities sat there, the Alchemist Society and the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. The headquarters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was still called the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, but the place where the Alchemist Guild was located was called the North Pill Hall. It occupied close to 1/10 of the entire city, and a large number of martial artists and alchemists resided there. There was also a huge medicine field that provided alchemists' daily alchemy needs. It was said that this herb field was enveloped by a super-large spirit gathering array, causing the spiritual energy in the herb field to be incomparably dense and promoting the growth of the spirit herbs. In order to maintain the operation of this spirit gathering formation, an astonishing amount of origin crystals was consumed every day. Perhaps even the Winter Moon sect would feel a chill in their hearts when they saw this number. In terms of wealth and grandeur, there were two great forces in the North region, the Alchemist Society and the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Only these two great forces could burn origin crystals like this. When Ling Han heard this, he couldn't help but feel an itch in his hands. He really wanted to enter the medicine field of the North Pill Palace, pull out a few stalks of every kind of spirit grass, and transplant them into the Black Tower to perfect his medicine field. In the Black Tower, that was a real medicinal field. Think too much. Make money, make money. Ling Han planned to open an alchemy shop and a restaurant to provide him with an endless supply of crystals. High-grade medicinal pills could indeed be sold for high grade through auctions, but the problem was that the rarer something was, the greater its value. If too many were taken out, the price would naturally fall. Furthermore, the amount of essence crystals that Ling Han required was an astronomical figure. No matter how much he had, it would never be too much. Therefore, not only did he need to take out some high-level medicinal pills from time to crazily collect origin crystals, he also had to make a steady stream of origin crystals and collect origin crystals unceasingly. All things were difficult at the beginning, and a single coin stumped a hero. Ling Han did not even have a single origin crystal, so he could only start from scratch. He first plucked some ginseng from the Black Tower, and ran to a pharmacy to sell it. As a result, the pharmacy tried its best to lower the price. After sitting for a while, he entered the Black Tower, took a bath, changed into a new set of clothes, and then tested out his brute force. It was comparable to element gathering tier. Heavens, he had only cultivated for an hour, and he had directly crossed over a whole tier of martial arts. Ling Han nodded. This was because he was standing at a different height. At this time, he was already in the spiritual pedestal tier, and had eaten so many great tonics. When these things were released, how could it still not be enough for a normal person to immediately cross over to the body refining tier? On the contrary, if you let a body refining tier martial artist eat so many tonics, he would have long been stuffed to death. However, the beginning was fast because I am already in the spiritual pedestal tier. My progress should not be so fast in the future, Ling Han said to himself. He cracked a smile. Body arts would be one of his trump cards. In future, who would think that he was at the end of his tether, but he would suddenly explode with a terrifying brute force, which would be able to turn the tables in a single move. He exited the Black Tower, and started a fire to cook with Hunyo. Now that he had an additional expense, his desire for food was becoming more and more intense. In future, the Black Tower will have to rear more demonic beasts, Ling Han said. Otherwise, it would really not be able to support his and Hunyo's stomachs. N. Hunyo expressed deep agreement, drooling as she stared at Ling Han. That egg can't be eaten, Ling Han said hurriedly. The little girl was still unwilling to give up, and had not forgotten the egg of the azure flame eagle. Stingy. Hunyo pouted, but when the food was cooked, she immediately began to eat happily. When they were about to finish eating, they saw someone climb up from below with great difficulty. It was Shinzhongcheng. He really did not think that the one who charged to the third place was not a flower blossom tier warrior of the older generation, nor was it the top of the young prodigy roll, but the white-robed sword king who had only charged to the 8th place this year. Ling Han nodded. These 3 stages actually did not test strength. Of course, if it was a monster like Ling Han and Hun Yo, who obviously only had the cultivation of the 2nd or 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but whose strength was comparable to the 9th layer, then that would be another matter. Overall, this stage was still a test of one's resilience. Spiritual pedestal tier cultivators had long since opened up their spiritual ocean, and their origin power was endless. Moreover, they had constructed a spiritual pedestal, which could almost reach the heavens. Climbing like this would definitely not exhaust one's strength. However, the gravity was too strong, and it was very easy for one to feel tired. Thus, who was fast and who was slow depended on each person's willpower. If you had to rest after every few steps, how could you possibly be fast? This swordsman's gaze was like a sword, flickering with an extraordinary splendor of tenacity and decisiveness. Obviously, he would definitely not stop until he reached the end. His body was like Ling Han's from before, covered in sweat, and his hair was completely drenched. However, when a man sprinkled sweat, not only did it not give others the feeling of being in a sorry state, it instead exuded an endless air of masculinity. Men should be like this. Ling Han dispelled the idea of inviting Shen Zhongqing over to rub him together. If Shen Zhongqing squeezed out all the tenacity in his body, it was very possible that he would win a great explosion. Either his cultivation level would soar, or he would obtain a great breakthrough on the path of the sword. Hun Yo, we can't be lazy anymore. Let's charge to the top in one go, he said. Charge. Hun Yo waved her small fist. The 2 of them also began to climb again. Their strength surpassed their cultivation level by too much, and in this place, the gravity that each person had to bear was determined by their cultivation level. Thus, the 2 of them were ridiculously fast, and in an instant, they had surpassed Shen Zhongqing. Yet Ling Han sighed. He was too relaxed, so relaxed that he could not squeeze out the limits of his body. Then, he would not be able to achieve the effects of tempering, what a pity. But on the other hand, that was also because he had long since raised his limits above this level, which was why he could be so relaxed now, having already passed through this process. When he thought of it that way, his heart felt better. Peng, 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 her weapons danced, and the 8 people were instantly knocked down, lying on the ground and groaning. This was naturally Hun Yo showing mercy, because Ling Han shook his head at her, not allowing her to kill. Although the little girl was very unhappy, she would not disobey Ling Han's orders. Seeing Hun Yo so ferocious, the 7 spiritual ocean tier martial artists could not sit still and all stood up. It was merely a newly opened restaurant, and the owner was an outsider who had just arrived, so what background or strength could he possibly have? Thus, for the 7 of them in the spiritual ocean tier to move out, it should have been a sure thing, but Hun Yo's strangeness was something even they couldn't see through. I'll do it. A black-clothed man in the spiritual ocean tier made a move, grabbing towards Hun Yo. Invincible little tiger fist. Hun Yo somersaulted in the air, her speed so fast that she was like a flash of light, already appearing behind the black-clothed man. Her small fist smashed, peng, instantly causing the man to stagger and spit out a mouthful of blood. Ling Han could not help but smile. Hun Yo now had another attribute of being playful. Together. The remaining 6 spiritual ocean tier martial artists were all shocked, and hurriedly rushed forward. For a group brawl like this, people with some status and pride would definitely disdain, not to mention that the opponent was only a little girl. But these 6 people were all servants, so how could they have the bearing of an elite? If one person could not beat her, then they definitely had to attack together. Pride and whatnot, was that something edible? Hun Yo was calm and unafraid. Her small figure darted left and right, swaying here and there. Her speed was so fast that even Ling Han, who did not open the Eye of Truth, couldn't capture her movements, not to mention these 6 people. In just a few moves, the 6 people were all defeated. Yeah. Hunyo jumped happily, looking like she was very powerful. The other black-clothed men all bared their teeth. It's over, they've kicked an iron plate. Before this, they thought that this restaurant was opened by a small martial artist in the Gushing Spring tier, and at most 1 or 2 spiritual ocean tier martial artists in charge. 7 of them came at once, so it should be enough to suppress them. Indeed, the other side only sent 2 spiritual ocean tier martial artists, but they were too fuck you fierce, torturing their 7 elites like dogs. What a fuck you. Run, go report to young Master Lang. Someone wanted to escape, but saw that Ling Han was smiling at them. I told you guys to leave just now, but you didn't. Now, it's too late. Ling Han moved, slapping one person over with a single slap. Instantly, all of them were lying on the ground. Those waiters were all dumbfounded, thinking that their boss was actually so fierce. Chapter 377. This time, there were a total of over 40 black-robed men. Every 10 people formed a skewer, hanging from the 3rd floor of the restaurant like grasshoppers. There were a total of 5 skewers, and the scene was quite spectacular. Many people were pointing and gossiping outside the restaurant. Some were bustling, some were making jokes, but those black-robed men naturally became the laughingstock. However, there were indeed many bustling people, but no one entered the restaurant to eat, because they all recognized the identity of these black-robed men. They were from the Lang clan, a spiritual pedestal tier force, so how could they let it go so easily? Thus, the Lang clan would definitely send people over later, and if they entered to eat, they would naturally be affected. They wouldn't starve to death even if they skipped a meal, right? But after a while, a young man in embroidered clothes strode over. When he saw the skewers of human meat hanging from the restaurant, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. He walked into the restaurant, and said with a smile, "Interesting, really interesting, guest, how many are you?" A waiter immediately went up to greet him. "Just this young master alone." That young man found a seat and sat down, appearing very casual. It was a kind of soaring confidence. Obviously, he came from a wealthy family, or he himself was strong enough. This young master heard that the 8 great treasures here are very famous. "Give this young master a portion," he said. "All right." The waiter immediately turned and went to the kitchen. In a short while, the dishes were served. That young man only took a bite, and his eyes widened, revealing an expression of disbelief. "It's delicious. It's delicious. It's delicious. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful," he praised. To be honest, this culinary skill is only average, but the ingredients themselves are too fresh and delicious. One bite makes one unable to stop, extremely wonderful. Hungry. Hunyo tugged on the corner of Ling Han's clothes. It was fine before, but when someone ate and drank to his heart's content in front of her, she instantly couldn't stand it anymore. Ling Han nodded, and had the kitchen prepare lunch for them. He, Hunyo, Lu Yutong, Zhu Wujiu, Ken Yi, and Guang Yuan sat at a table. When the good dishes were served, they immediately started eating. The food they ate was obviously not comparable to what they sold to others. They used not only the meat of demonic beasts, but also many precious medicinal ingredients, which were made into medicinal cuisine. These medicinal ingredients had been planted in the Black Tower for at least a month or 2, so they were at least 100 years old. What kind of concept was that? It could be said that only in Ling Han's last life, he would have had so much wealth for him to squander like this, but he was only in the spiritual ocean tier now, and was also in the North region, a relatively barren land, so even a force like the Winter Moon sect couldn't do it. With delicious food in front of them, everyone began to fight over food without any regard for their image. Of course, none of them could possibly win against Hunyo. The little girl was born to be a foodie. Just as they were enjoying the food, they saw the young man in embroidered clothes walk over and say with a drooling face, "Can I sit down and eat with you? I won't eat for free. This meal is on me." Ling Han smiled and said, "Those 8 dishes aren't enough for you." The embroidered-clothed youth rubbed his nose and said, "It really isn't enough. Moreover, the dishes on your table seem to be even more delicious." His eyes were shining and he was about to drool. Indeed, with different ingredients, the fragrance wafting out would be different. "Can't you see that all the waiters are desperately swallowing their saliva?" Ling Han looked at the young man in embroidered clothes and found him interesting. This made him so angry that he was seething with anger, and he could not care less that he had not eaten that alluring little thing, and immediately rushed over. "Tch, Lang Jun Kai, when did you become so impressive?" Gong Letian suddenly spoke. Previously, he still had the appearance of a pitiful puppy, but the moment he turned around, he carried an overbearing arrogance. "Does this young master also not have the right to tell you to scram?" "Gong, young master Gong." Lang Jun Kai instantly choked up, revealing a hint of panic. The Lang clan was considered a reputable clan in the extreme Yang city, but their true confidence came from the earth-grade alchemist they attached themselves to. However, the Gong clan itself was an alchemy clan. Aside from Gong Letian, the rest of the 3 generations were all alchemists, and Gong Hikan of the older generation was even a low-level earth-grade alchemist. Compared to the Gong clan, the Lang clan was obviously greatly inferior, and there was absolutely no comparison. For these spoilt young masters, what they competed on was obviously their clan's background. Even if Lang Jun Kai and Gong Letian both had the cultivation of the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, Lang Jun Kai had no confidence to speak of in front of Gong Letian. "Don't affect this young master's mood to eat, scram," Gong Letian said domineeringly. Now that he was in danger, it made him extremely gloomy. "Ling Han, how did I offend you? Why are you messing with me like this?" he said coldly, not even calling him Master Ling. Ling Han smiled, and said seriously, "Junior brother Wen, we're one family, so we obviously have to cross the river together at this time. Don't worry, I'll protect you." "Protect your sister," I could have just swaggered away. Wen Yijian gritted his teeth, but the situation before him obviously wouldn't go his way. Thankfully, those spiritual infant-tier cultivators from before had already returned. Otherwise, if those elites had made a move, he could only wait to be captured. Now, he could stake it all and fight his way out of the encirclement. "Ling Han, I'll definitely settle this score with you." As he swore, he stood together with Ling Han. The two of them, together with the rock spirit, formed a corner, back to back. "Ha, that's a matter for the future," Ling Han said indifferently. Lu Yutong and the others tactfully didn't step forward. If they went up now, not only would they not be able to help Ling Han, they'd instead become a burden, which made them feel uncomfortable. Even though their growth speed was very fast, and they even fought their way into the North region's prodigy role, they still couldn't help Ling Han out of trouble. Come, whoever wants the secret treasure, make your move," Ling Han said with a loud laugh. "However, you guys should think clearly. I'm still a heaven-grade alchemist, and if you harm a single hair of mine, be careful that the entire alchemist society won't let you go." The flower blossom tier elite's faces twisted, feeling that Ling Han was both courageous and a bit of a scoundrel. Fighting one against many, this was naturally courageous. But he brought out his identity as a heaven-grade alchemist to threaten them, making it hard for them to avoid having their hands and feet bound when they made their move. Wasn't that extremely shameless? This was not the slightest bit like an 18-year-old young man. He was mature and sly, practically an old fox. Capture him, try not to hurt him. The flower blossom tier elites reached a consensus. A heaven-grade alchemist's weight was really too heavy. It was fine to kill him in secret, but if they killed Ling Han in public, it would definitely spread throughout the world. At that time, whoever succeeded in killing Ling Han would definitely be pushed out by the sect as a scapegoat to appease the fury of the alchemists in the world. Oh, I didn't get the secret treasure, but I have to be the one to die. Who would do such a thing? Thus, everyone hoped that the others would accidentally kill Ling Han. They would definitely not do such a thing themselves. Go! Over 20 flower blossom tier elites attacked together, and the momentum was very vast.